Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. You're watching my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, November 11th, 2024. And if you'd like to watch these ad-free, check out my Patreon in the link in the description. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1925, written by Friendship Entire, 6364. Between Monday and Wednesday, we vanished away. In 2014, I was living with my then boyfriend and working debt collections for a pretty well-known company. I hated the job and had begun to feel like my day-to-day life was really mundane. Because we had access to people's sensitive information, full social security numbers, addresses, etc., we weren't allowed to even bring our phones into the building. Once a month, they would put us on required overtime when we were working on accounts that were getting ready to go into the next phase of collections. I worked 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday and was scheduled 9 a.m. 7 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday. I got home from work Monday night and watched Netflix with my boyfriend until I fell asleep. Woke up the next day to pee, and when I checked the time, it was 8:13. I assume I had forgot to set an alarm, freaked out for a minute, and rushed to get ready for work. I pulled into the parking lot at 8:56 and was feeling pretty good about it, still making it to work on time. As I was clocking in, my coworker Anna stopped me and asked me, "Where were you yesterday?" I said, here?" She insisted I wasn't, which I thought was really weird, but I just brushed it off, clocked in, and went to my desk. Anna and I were pretty close as far as coworkers go. We bitched about the job throughout the workday, and texted and engaged with each other on social media outside of work daily. About 20 minutes into my shift, I glanced at the calendar on my computer, and it was showing it was Wednesday. I genuinely thought Anna was playing a weird prank on me and had messed with my computer settings, since she asked where I was when she knew full well I was there yesterday. On my lunch break, I went out to my car, as I did every shift. When I turned my phone on, it also said it was Wednesday. I started panicking and called my boyfriend. He worked second shift and hadn't yet gone into work, but looked at his phone and had the same realization and also started freaking out. Now the really weird thing is, no one in either of our lives seemed to notice except Anna. I wasn't super hungry or thirsty, as I assumed I would be if I hadn't consumed anything for an entire day. We both were heavy smokers at the time, but neither of us woke up feeling like we really needed a cigarette. We lived with my boyfriend's two brothers, and we had two dogs. One was an elderly dog, and the other was just a puppy, so they both required pretty frequent trips outside. Our room was in the basement, and we had a baby gate at the top of the stairs to keep them from roaming the house while we were sleeping. Neither of the dogs had an accident in our room, nor did they eat as though they hadn't been fed in over 24 hours. I asked both of his brothers, and they hadn't let the dogs out or fed them Tuesday. I am really close with my mom, and we talk on the phone on my way to and from work every day, yet she didn't mention anything about not talking to me for an entire day. Neither of us were written up for no call, no show on a shift, or even spoken to by management about the missed shift. Neither of us had any missed calls or texts from Tuesday. To this day, I have no reasonable explanation for what happened that caused us to lose an entire day. If I had been living alone, I would have chalked it up to somehow being so exhausted, or maybe having a weird 24-hour illness or something that made me sleep through an entire day. But the fact that both of us experienced the same thing with no consequences made it even weirder. I think about this regularly, and no one I've spoken to about it can come up with anything plausible either. It feels as though we went to sleep Monday, ceased to exist in this reality on Tuesday, and then resumed normal life on Wednesday. Case file number 1926, written by Diddle the Twiddle, a time-twisting morning with no warning. My alarm goes off every morning at 3:32 a.m. I snoozed a few times and got out of bed before 4. I'm out of the door by 4:10. I picked up a friend of mine, Kelly, on the way. We stopped at the gas station and arrived at work by 4:50. Shift starts at 5. I've held this routine for a few months now. I'm pretty used to it. This morning, October 8th, started like every other, with me out of the house around 4:10. I'm not even a few miles down the road when Kelly calls me and says, "Hey, where are you?" "On my way to get you for work." This is when, simultaneously, I look at the clock in my truck and chose, while Kelly says, "You know it's 5:15 and not 4:15, right?" I am so confused and don't even understand how that's possible. She says she already called off and hangs up. I head to work. I don't really give it much more thought, assuming I just messed up my alarm or getting up. Fast forward to about 8 p.m. this evening, and I call her to ask her to call me when she wakes up in the morning to make sure I'm up. I've never had to have her do this before. So, while we're on the phone, she tells me that she walked into her kitchen at 4:15, and when she came back to the living room, it was exactly an hour later. I don't really freak out about things, but I can't stop thinking about how and why. What changed? Where did that hour go? For both of us. Case file number 1927, written by Radioactive EJ. Emotional gaze in the exhibit's maze. I work in a popular museum in the UK, which requires me to roam around specific attractions and talk about the history and genuinely make sure all the visitors are safe. However, I had a very strange moment with a pair of visitors. As they entered the area I was in, they did not stop looking at me, even though they had audio guides for the exhibit. There was no real reason for them to make as much eye contact with me as they did. I myself am 25. And I just presume they must have a question that they're working out how to ask. So I went over to them and said hello. They were very friendly back with me. But the smiles they gave were super emotional. It honestly felt like they weren't listening to what I was saying, but just me talking. I can't put it into words, but it was very intense. They seemed very happy to just listen to me, but their facial expressions did not change when I was speaking. It was just very over-emotional. I managed to tell them about the exhibit, give them some information, but their eyes, in both of them, were beginning to tear up. I genuinely thought they must be going through something, and they're being polite, and that they're just hearing me out. But here's the kicker. After talking to them for about 5 minutes, every time I went to leave, they'd ask a random question and again continue just listening, whilst also being very melancholic with me. I started to feel a bit off, but my break was coming up, so I said goodbye and began to leave. This is where both of them thanked me, and then also thanked me by my name. Then they both left. They didn't even look around the exhibit properly. They just moved on, teary-eyed. Now here's the thing. I don't introduce myself with my name at work. We don't share each other's names. And yes, we have name tags, but I haven't ever put mine on, as I don't like people knowing my name. I like that boundary. To this day, I have no clue why they were both emotional and how they both knew my name. They left briskly, and they both looked like they were about to cry. I have until this moment never given anything a thought, but this is a genuinely unexplainable situation. I have never met them in my life. I know all my relatives. I just can't put it into words, the constant feel of sadness and bittersweet that was given off by them as they sort of spoke to me. Now I also know I have not given them my name, my colleagues haven't, and I wear nothing with my name on, so that's the part that made me think, what can this interaction be? Who were they? Case file number 1928, written by Pat's Cutie 81. In the rush of the brew, scissors turn 2. I work for a popular coffee and donut shop chain, and on this particular day, I was really busy serving a lineup of customers at the storefront. We were short-staffed, so I was handling the line all by myself, when I ran out of cream in my cream machine. I didn't have time to go to the back to grab a new bag of cream, so when the baker came out front to stage some new donuts, I asked her if she would run to the fridge and bring me out a new bag of cream, while I continued to serve customers. She brought me the bag of cream, set up the hopper, and put it in the machine for me. All I had to do was cut the hose. So at the front of the house, we only used the lime green colored scissors, and at the back of the house and kitchen, we only use black handled scissors for food prep. There is usually 1 or 2 pairs of the lime green scissors at my station at the storefront. Our countertops are black, so lime green scissors really stand out on them. You can't miss them. Additionally, we keep a very clean and organized counter area, so there really is nothing else on the countertops, except for the machines, cups, lids, stirring spoons, and the scissors. I reach my hand under the brewing stand to grab the scissors, and they aren't there. I check all around the storefront area, anywhere I thought scissors may be, and nothing. So I asked the baker if she wouldn't mind grabbing me a pair of scissors to cut the bag of cream. When she came back, she handed me a pair of black-handled scissors. I know this for certain because I immediately thought to myself, these are the wrong scissors for up here. We never use the black ones out front. They're meant for food prep. But because she's a baker and does all the food prep, she automatically grabbed black ones. I didn't mention this at all to her. Being in a hurry and needing that cream open, I thought, screw it. I'm using the black ones and I'll put them in the dishwasher as soon as I have a moment. I get through the line of customers, maybe 4 or 5 minutes have passed, and I start to wipe down and sanitize my counter area. No other staff members have come up front to my area of the store. Everyone else was working drive-thru. As I'm wiping everything down, I discover not 1, but 2 pairs of lime green handled scissors right there underneath the brewing stands. The very first place I had looked for them. And the black scissors were nowhere to be found. I was so confused. I thought that maybe I had misremembered, so I immediately went back to ask the baker what color the scissors were that she brought me. She told me that she had brought me the black-handled scissors. I then asked if she had taken them back and switched them out with the green ones. She said no. She was just as confused as I was. I then went around asking everyone if they had brought 2 pairs of green scissors up front, and they all said they hadn't. So, to summarize, 1 pair of black scissors turned into 2 pairs of bright green scissors, and I still don't know what happened to the black pair. Case file number 1929, written by OK Supermarket 8659. Invisible romance without a chance. Back when I was in high school, I, 20 male, was fairly popular and had a pretty decent group of friends. I was well enough liked, but struggled getting a girlfriend for a variety of reasons. I didn't want to date the myriad of girls my friends tried to set me up with. I was well and truly a happy single. However, I was a bit insecure about the fact that all my friends were dating, many of them, and I was being left alone. Enter this random girl who follows me on Instagram one day. 1 or 2 mutuals who are all mutual friends of themselves. Very far away from my social circle. She replies to one of my stories, I talk to her a bit, and I essentially string her along. It's clear she's interested, so we even meet up one day. Then I have a bright idea. I tell my friends this girl is my girlfriend. She lived really far away from our high school, and none of them knew anyone who knew her. No social overlap. It was perfect. I even texted her every now and then and talk on call to keep up the facade. She obviously is happy to oblige because she likes me. I will never meet her again though. Remember this. This is key. So a year later, when we're done with high school, I finally decide I'm ready to date. So I staged a fake breakup with her. My friends all console me, and I'm happy as a clam that I got away with this. I texted her a few more times. We hadn't called in a while anyway. I dated another girl for 2 months, and that's that. So I'm in college now. This is my 4th semester. Last week, one of my friends asked me if I remember so-and-so, the girl I pretended to date. I say I do. He says that he kinda misses her. She was a good fit for me. I laugh and ask him what makes him say that, since he's never met her. He tells me, but you used to bring her over all the time. I'm confused. I ask him what he's on about. He shows me pictures of all of us together, and her sitting with us. I try to act nonchalant, but he's kinda concerned at this point. I waved it off as a joke, and I didn't mention it until he left. At that point, I scrolled through my own gallery, and sure enough, there isn't a single picture of her, so I relax. Then, just as an afterthought, I go to my Instagram story archives. In that 1 year, there had to be like 60 or 70 stories of us together. This cannot be doctored. I casually ask some of my friends if they do remember her. They all do. I finally cave and contact her. She picked up my call. We made small talk. I couldn't just ask her if we had ever dated, so I mentioned the good old days, and she agreed. She talked about the events that never happened. She even referenced the breakup that never happened, and it was exactly the same as a lie I told everyone. Case file number 1930. Written by Newfound Fool. A tale of two faces in all the wrong places. My friend and I are constantly mistaken for each other, to the point where when it started, we thought it was cute and funny, but it has been going on for so long and keeps happening more and more that it's just old now and starting to freak me out. One would think surely we must look alike, right? Well, not really. I don't think our faces look anything alike, and people agree with me. Me, 39 female, mid-length hair, brunette. I have a very colorful sleeve. Her, let's call her Betty B, 33 female, long blonde hair. She has individual black and gray tattoos all over. We are about the same height, but different build. It makes absolutely no sense, but if we are at an event, someone will think we're the other person, minimum once each. And some of these people know us very well. I have a full 15-minute conversation with a friend one night at a party, before I realized she thought she was talking to my other friend. It's almost getting worse too. It started happening to some of our close friends. To give some context, in the run of a weekend camping trip with a bunch of friends, this happened to me 3 times. I've known most of these people for over 8 years, and I brought her into the community about 6 years ago. With the two of us, it goes both ways. It gets weirder. There's another female friend, let's call her Batty B, 36 female, similar height, long darker blonde hair, full colored sleeves and hands, and a more curvy doggy than mine. Makes me wish I was this one. I don't think we look alike in the face either, except maybe a similar shape of face. We're not as close, so people don't get together as much, but people have also mistaken me for her for almost 10 years. Even 2 of her boyfriends thought I was her at one point. People thinking I'm Batty B actually makes more sense than mixing me up with Betty B. One more example. My whole life, I've had this feeling that people don't remember my face, so I always reintroduce myself. Despite being a large personality, I've been told I'm hard to forget. Which, check out, I'm fun, loud, and adorable. We were throwing a big fundraiser event where everyone dresses up. I had a killer outfit and added a long braid extension to my ponytail. Only once that night was I mistaken for my friend. But I would say 60% of my friends didn't know who I was. It was the strangest experience. Imagine going to a party full of your friends, and over half of them don't recognize you. It makes no sense. I was wearing makeup, but not any more than usual. All my friends who did recognize me couldn't believe that others couldn't. I found out later that I had in-depth conversations with friends, and they thought they were talking to random people. They didn't realize it until all the photos of the event were posted and they all saw me with my partner. That was the night I realized I should have been a spy, and I feel bad for calling Superman's disguise stupid. Case file number 1931, written by Anonymous. The nice young man in the blue suit. I worked in a nursing home a while back as a cook. It was a good job. The residents were cool and the nurses rocked. Being a nursing home, however, meant that death came to our residents pretty frequently. Occasionally, staff would see strange things in the halls out of the corner of their eyes. The newer staff would always try to investigate. The older staff always knew they would find nothing. Here is the strangest thing though. A day before a patient died, they were lucid. They would report having had a visitor, despite no one being in the visitor logs. The visitor was always a young man, generically handsome, clean-cut, and would sit with the patient and they would talk. The patients who spoke of this man always said that they felt better after the talk, but inevitably, they would die within 24 hours. Even seemingly healthy residents would pass away within 24 hours. So when a resident brought up the young man in the blue suit, the nurses would unofficially contact the family and strongly encourage them to visit the resident. Earlier I mentioned that the staff were seeing things out of the corner of their eyes. A person walking into a resident's room, a little blur of movement at the end of the hall. Several staff, myself included, got more direct looks at this entity. It was usually in a restroom or a resident's room. Always in a reflection, but definitely there. He seemed to be checking on the residents, placing a hand on them, and then leaving the room and vanishing. He would show up for non-nursing staff in restrooms or via reflective surfaces in staff-only areas, there to guide and comfort the dying towards the end of their lives. He genuinely seemed to ease the burdens hanging on the residents, and they seemed to pass away pretty easily. Case file number 1932, written by uncommercialized male. The night a creature left its mark in the silent dark. When I was about 7 or 8, I woke up to the sound of our dog barking furiously. I remember her barking viciously, which usually meant there were coyotes or raccoons in the yard. I sat up, about to check for coyotes. My dad was a heavy sleeper. I often had to wake him up to shoot coyotes before he let me have his air rifle. When I heard our dog yelp, our dog was a scrappy black lab who would spend half the night chasing and fighting creatures of the night. She never backed down from a fight. Which is why we often kept her on a long chain at night. She would sound the alarm and we would chase off the coyotes from the yard, keeping her from getting seriously hurt. I say this because I had never heard her yelp. Seconds after she yelps, I hear and see something big running between my window and the well house. I could hear ragged breathing and galloping, and as it passed by my window, I saw the outline of its hunched back filling half my window pane. Our house sat on a 2-foot stone foundation, and my windows were about 6 feet off the ground. This thing had to be at least 8 feet tall, possibly taller, since it sounded like it was galloping on 4 legs. I heard it pause for just a second to jump the fence about 20 feet from my room, before it continued on, and it faded into the night. I'll never forget sitting frozen in bed, listening to its ragged breathing and footfalls rapidly fading away. Dog didn't bark the rest of the night. She was probably hiding in her doghouse, and it took me a while before I could lay down and fall back asleep. There was a window right next to the head of my bed, and I was terrified that I would lay down and see the face of the beast staring at me. Never mentioned it to my family. Figured they wouldn't believe me anyways. Case file number 1933, written by Vampire Wolf. The Vanished Week's Mire left questions dire. I still have no idea what happened to that missing week, 11 years later. Gather around, story time. I graduated as an electronics technician in 2006 and pushed my career path hard and fast. Production tech for a year, warranty for 2 years, Q&A for 6 months, QA reliability tech for a year, then into regional management. For that 7 years I was pushing my body and mind, working 12 hours a day on average. Working my day job and then IT work in the evenings, or just getting more work done than should have been humanly possible towards the end of it. 205, 250 hours a month average, over 300 a couple times, for $160K salary. I lost the company lottery in 2013, long story, but the company hired based on projects and bids, then let management fire whoever they wanted. So now I'm downsized in May 2013, while every group I was part of was shutting down for summer, which means I have time to kill. I managed to kill May. June I spent 2 or 3 weeks online, quite literally. I even slept a couple hours a day at my computer, if I slept. Did you know lolcats and I can has cheeseburger have an end? YouTube takes you to the weird side and back to the normal side if you click random videos long enough. Then I lost a week. No computer records. See, IT. No bank records. No phone records. No mystery food in the fridge. No laundry. If I spent anything, it was less than $100, as I normally have $40 to $100 on me. I went from sitting at my computer to sitting in my recliner, and a week had gone by. I still have no clue what happened, just a momentary hiccup and missing time. But it's an entire week. Case file number 1934, written by Hey Holly J. From Bubbly to Shy, a life's a big why. This happened several years ago in college, and I still can't fully explain it. Before you ask, I was sleeping normally. I've never had a severe head injury, and I was not under any unusual amount of stress. I was sitting in one of my classes taking notes while the professor lectured, when I suddenly realized that my entire existence and identity had completely changed. I don't remember anything about my former existence, but I am absolutely certain that my reality transformed in that moment. I had the eerie feeling that I was magically in a different body, with a different personal history, a different family and friends, sitting in a different class with different people around me, maybe in a different place. The wildest part about it is that I looked down at my notes, and they had nothing to do with the class I was sitting in. Like my hand was still mid-writing a sentence, but the stuff I had written before, transition, was just about business marketing concepts that I had never learned about in any class in college. And the professor was clearly currently lecturing about public health. It was my handwriting though. I started looking around really perturbed, and I probably gasped, because the professor stopped and asked if I was okay. I got up and left the class and immediately walked to the psychological counseling center, because I thought I had a schizophrenic episode or something, and I might need professional help. It was 2 people, probably in case they needed to sign me in for involuntary hospitalization, triaged me and considered admitting me for inpatient treatment, because I was pretty frantic and talking about how I didn't truly exist and I wasn't real. After calming down and talking a lot, they said I had probably experienced a severe dissociative episode, but no one could explain the notes I showed them, and they all agreed that it was weird, but said I probably just forgot about the notes from a different class and spaced out. Again, I never took a business class, and had to look up terms and formulas from the notes to even know what they meant. I wasn't convinced, so they brought out the actual DSM book to show me that my symptoms aligned with dissociation. I had to lie to them and tell them I believed it was a dissociative episode, and spent a long time talking and convincing them that I was okay to avoid going to the hospital. Maybe I did dissociate, but that doesn't explain my apparent lasting personality change from that time on. I was supposedly a very bubbly, outgoing person before, and I am decidedly a reserved and shy person now. Writing this out is literally stressing me out so much right now because it's so vulnerable. I have completely different interests and goals now than I did before the episode. I will admit that I had some depression and anxiety throughout my life, but never anything that altered my perception of reality. The experience still really baffles me, and I try not to think about it too much because I start wondering about my existence in alternate timelines, etc. And it's a spiral that makes me feel a little sad. It makes me feel like my lifelong relationships aren't genuine. I haven't really been able to maintain these relationships anyways. My family has almost completely disowned me because they say that I changed and lost my values when I moved away from home for college. I can't relate to them at all. We struggle to communicate, and I don't love anyone in my family. I do love many other people, so I'm not just some psychopath. I haven't felt anything when people in my family have died, but I've been devastated by the deaths and misfortunes of other loved ones, mostly people I met after the episode. This isn't your classic case of conservative parents disowning their newly progressive child. My parents say that I used to care about important things like getting married and having kids, but I can't remember ever having a desire to get married. I've always been terrified of the thought of having children. I don't enjoy or care about supposed family traditions, and I have entirely different taste in food, entertainment, style, everything. I'm also weirdly the only person in my family who doesn't speak with a deep southern accent, and I remember people commenting on it after the episode. I've seen freaky videos of myself as a kid where my accent is clearly different. I even speak in a much higher pitch. But I think I made a conscious decision to drop the accent so people wouldn't think I was dumb. I'm not sure though. It's like a hazy memory. A lot of my memories feel this way. Nothing from before the episode is clear, like the memories I've made after the episode. No one in college commented that my accent had changed, so maybe it was just more striking to my hometown friends because they hadn't heard from me in a while. It's confusing, but I feel like I can't be the same person my parents raised. Many of my friends who I allegedly grew up with have also said that I seem really different since I went away to college. I definitely matured a lot and developed as a person, but their comments have made me think that I'm really not the same person. I can't seem to relate to them on anything, and I don't understand how we ever hung out, especially when it comes to humor. We don't laugh at any of the same stuff. I feel like I have to pretend to be someone else to spend time with them, so our friendships have fizzled out. They often want to gossip about people from our childhoods, but I feel no connection to those people, and I don't care about gossiping because they're basically strangers to me. Even in college, I was a leader and founder in a sorority before the episode, but afterwards I couldn't understand why I would ever pay to be part of an organization with such strict and old school rules. I hated the events I helped organize and attended, and the rituals were meaningless to me. I went from wearing my t-shirts and bags emblazoned with sorority's Greek letters every day to not wanting to touch those items because they felt like someone else's possessions. I left the sisterhood, which was apparently surprising to everyone except me. One troubling thing is that I don't really care about the relationships I've lost because of my personality change. I don't feel like I even really know these people. So it doesn't matter to me if they don't like me or are surprised by my behavior. I've pretty much had to restart and make entirely different friends since this happened. But I've also reconnected with people from my past who say I'm nothing like they remember, and we've gotten along really well. I can't explain why I wasn't closer to these people all along, because we have shared interests, values, communication styles, etc. My memories of things I liked doing before are not things I would enjoy now, and I don't understand how I ever did. For example, I apparently skipped prom to go fishing because I didn't want to pay the entrance fee, but I love dressing up and dancing, and I don't like fishing. This makes absolutely no sense to me. I have tattoos whose significance I don't totally understand. They look pretty, but I can't explain why I got them, and don't remember where the idea for them came from. When I see pictures of myself from before, I look like a stranger to me. I dress differently, stand differently, smile differently. It's perturbing to me, but other people don't seem to notice. There's something really off about my eyes in photos from before, and it makes me feel uneasy. It's like the way I held the muscles in my face while smiling was different than before. I can make my face look like that now, but it's not how I naturally smile. I still sometimes have a hard time with pictures because I don't feel like I'm the person in the photo. I really hate mirrors and always worry that she, my reflection, is going to take back control or something. I'm afraid to look my reflection in the eyes. One major worry I have is that one day I'll just switch back and have to go through all this again. Maybe it will happen multiple times. Maybe I'll become an entirely different person again. I really freaking hope not. It's all incredibly strange and I can't explain it, and it still freaks me out. It seems to make psychologists uncomfortable, so I've largely just dropped it at this point, but I obviously still think about it all the time. Boy golly, if you have any theories, I'd love to hear them. Quaesonceval 1925. Between Monday and Wednesday, we vanished away. So my initial impression would have been the same. Oh, Anna's playing a prank on me. That's why she even mentioned that you weren't here the day before. That makes sense, but there's no way she had access to your phone. And of course, checking all the other dates and times. No, you really did skip a day. There's no way Anna has the power of pranking people to that extent, of infiltrating IT departments and changing all the clocks around the world. No, I don't think so. So you lost a day, but it's more that you and your husband went on autopilot? Because again, as you refer to all the points, that your dogs weren't hungry, you weren't hungry, your husband wasn't hungry, you weren't craving cigarettes. So you must have been on autopilot, but you just didn't go into work. Now, what could, possess, I think is the right word. What could possess two people to go onto autopilot? And what did you actually do during those days? I don't think it's a case where you vanished from the plane of existence. I think something took over your bodies and suppressed the memories of whatever you did during those days. Or during the day. I mean, assuming you don't have warrants out for your arrest, maybe nothing too nefarious, but still makes you wonder. Was it like a guardian angel that needed a vessel and doesn't have to ask permission? Or maybe did ask permission, you gave it, and the memory of that is suppressed too. Maybe. I certainly like the idea of a guardian angel requiring permission to take over a vessel. That's more moral than otherwise. Caissons found 1926, a time-twisting morning with no warning. Yeah, so a lot of time anomalies this week. And this one is not as grand as the last one, but still. Missing an entire hour, obviously, assuming this has nothing to do with daylight savings, which I'm sure you ruled out, it wasn't the right day for that. So, you just lost an hour, and it appeared to be a localized phenomena that impacted Kelly as well. More space-time warping, but on a larger scale than is typical of any sort of space-time bubble or anything like that. Now time for the joke of the day. I asked my German friend if he knew the square root of 81. He said no. Why would Germans be especially gifted at math? Wait, wasn't Einstein German? But I mean, even then, doesn't mean all Germans are expert mathematicians. Caissons found 1927. Emotional gaze in the exhibit's maze. The first possibility is these are your children from the future, coming back in time. And it seems like it's a deliberate attempt. They knew who you were, they knew why they were there, to see you specifically. Now, the other possibility is not a glitch at all, but simply your real parents. Maybe you're adopted and were never told. And these are your real parents who found out where you worked, who you really were now, which you're not supposed to be able to do, but I'm sure there's ways to find out that information if you give up your child for adoption. I'm sure it happens here and there. But they didn't want to tell you that, so they just came to see you, and that's why they were so emotional. That makes a lot of sense. Normally, a lot of these glitches, the mundane theory doesn't really make sense, but in this case, I actually am leaning towards that. Yeah. Caissons found 1928. In the rush of the brew, scissors turned 2. So I'm just trying to picture lime green covered scissors, the handles. I don't know why, but that's comical to me. Just the color of it, you don't see it much in most instances. Besides on limes, obviously. But yeah, we just have a case of duplication, de-rendering, etc. For whatever the catalyst is, items can vanish, and then perhaps because of the developer in the real world trying to correct the issue, but not realizing the color selection was wrong, so they took scissors from a different universe, brought it over here, and that's how they tried to play it off, but they got the color wrong. Maybe something as simple as that. Now time for the joke of the day. Sheepdog says to farmer, I got all 50 sheep in the pen. Farmer says to dog, but I only have 46 sheep. Sheepdog says to farmer, I know, I rounded them up. Another math pun, yay! Caissons found 1929. Invisible romance without a chance. So you say back in high school and then say I-20 male. I'm assuming you weren't 20 in high school, but you're just 20 now. Anyways. Yeah, we've all been teenagers and done things that aren't exactly good. To lead someone on, pretend you're dating them, etc. Not ideal, but it's almost like a cosmic prank on you, karma, where the universe said, okay, you're going to pretend that you did this? Well, no, you actually did it. Waja, magic spell, and now you've done it. Outside of quantum immortality, you're in a different universe where you did actually date her. But that's a big change. That's a leap that I don't know if I'd make, because again, you're young, there's no clear indication of why you would have died, so it doesn't seem likely it's that, but if it's not quantum immortality, I'm honestly not sure what it would be. Caissons found 1930. A tale of two faces in all the wrong places. Okay, I'll be the first one to say that I got no clue on this one. I mean, if you have a friend that looks like you, obviously you get mistaken all the time. But it's almost like your essences are shifting between each other. And you had Betty B and Batty B, and even Batty B this happens to, when you look nothing alike. And it's not just a face. You know someone by their body. You know someone by their pheromones. I don't think I've ever confused someone to be someone else if I knew them. It's just not possible. Their voice, their aura, their mystique, everyone has a unique identifier. And for some reason, yours is interchangeable with two other people. Between all of them, it's like a triangle of superposition. How bizarre. But I don't know what would cause this. I really don't. There's no glitch that I can think of that really fits either, so this is just a mystery. Very strange one to experience, I imagine. Now time for the joke of the day. While applying for Australian citizenship, the officer asked me, "Do you have a criminal history?" And I said, "No. Is that still required?" That's amazing. Returning to the penal colony. That is one of those things that really does make sense, though. Australia is so hostile that it started off as a penal colony, a prison basically. Makes total sense. That's not a place you really want to go just to visit, to live. But apparently people do. No disrespect to anyone who's Australian. I just, damn, you guys are playing on hardcore. Case notes from 1931. The nice young man in the blue suit. This is a well-known phenomena where people who are on the verge of death will start to see figures. Usually, but not always, they'll see a cloaked figure, like the Reaper, the classical Reaper, with the scythe and everything. I don't know if a scythe is reported, but normally they don't see a handsome young man in a blue suit. I wonder, who is making the decision on what the apparition looks like? Is it a sentient being of some sort that has to go to these places and really be there? It's not just some program of the simulation that's running. This would seem to indicate that it is indeed a physical person going there, or a being, a sentient force. And they can choose what they appear as. So, in this case, this one wanted to offer more mercy and not appear as something threatening or terrifying. I'm recalling a prank video where it's just a store, and the store is set up where you go up to the front of the counter to pay like any normal store. But there's a camera recording them, and there's a TV showing the camera angle, so you see yourself being recorded right behind the counter. And what they did is they manipulated the footage, so behind someone, there would just be a man in reality. But on the camera, it showed the Reaper being there, just behind them, with the scythe and everything. The whole thing. The whole shebang. And so when they turn around, they just see an old man with a scythe or a hoe or something, just like a farmer, and he just winks at them. It's like, yeah, I'm the Reaper. I'm here to take you. I'm here to harvest you. They just look back and it's the Reaper again on the screen and like, no, this is not happening. That is a hell of a prank, I have to say. But in this case, it's not a prank. It's just the experience of people near death being comforted by a good Reaper, if you want to call it a Reaper. Case notes found 1932. The night a creature left its mark in the silent dark. Yeah, if you have pets, especially dogs, you know that usually they're the ones that are menacing. They're the alphas in the local area. But if you hear them yelping, you know something bad's going on. Now, whatever this creature was, I don't know. I do think it was real. I do think it's probably some creature we haven't documented, and the world is so big, it's not that unusual to think about. If that's the case, these creatures they keep to themselves in isolation, because there's a lot of humans around, so we would see them eventually at some point. Now, as we keep exploring, and we all have cameras now in our pockets, these creatures will be demystified. But even then, even if we catalog an 8-foot-tall horse thing galloping around, we can know that exists and say it's just a normal big creature, but it doesn't make it any less terrifying to me, at least. The other possibility is this wasn't a creature from this universe. It was an apparition from a different, faraway universe where perhaps humans are not the dominant apex species. that makes a lot of sense too. Okay, so it's found 1933. The Vanished Week's Mire left questions dire. And another time episode, but this one even crazier. We have 1 week vanishing, a day, and an hour. That's amazing. I didn't really try to organize these stories in some sort of time-focused theme, but it just happened that way, and very curious, let's just say that. Losing an entire week, similar to the story of losing a day, where it seems like you didn't vanish from the surface of the planet or phase out. You just went on autopilot and simply either were you, but don't remember, the memory of the week is suppressed for some reason, or you weren't you. You were possessed by a guardian angel, a demon, whatever it might be. Personally, I hope it's not some sort of possession, but it kind of seems to be implying that in many ways because no one's missing you. So they must have interacted with you. You probably still did your job. Whatever exactly happened. This kind of stuff terrifies me. Now time for the joke of the day. 2 hats are on a hat rack. One hat says to the other, "You stay here. I'm gonna go on ahead." Yes, you are. And you're gonna style it up. Okay, so it's found 1934. From Bubbly to Shy. A life's big why. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in this story, but the first thing I will say is just, even though psychiatrists and psychologists might be not really understand what's going on, I would say defer to their expertise first and foremost. Maybe it is simply a mental problem and it can be fixed. Now, if it hasn't happened again since then, well, you have the fear of it happening again, but that does diminish the probability that is psychological. Won't discount that. Okay, what if, not always, but sometimes, these disassociative episodes or changing of mindset, dual personality, are caused by a quantum immortality transfer into you by a soul that wasn't meant for you. Maybe it wasn't a copy of you in a different universe, but someone else loaded into your body, into your brain. And you have 2 souls occupying the same space, but one is suppressing the other, or even replaced it, overrid it. Maybe some part of your original soul is still there. Now, I don't even know if this is better in terms of, did your soul get erased or pushed down maybe? Or was it a fusion, a blending? So you're still you. The soul is there, it's just morphed. And maybe that's why they can't correct it, because it's too late. The code is already fused together. It's like trying to reform a sandwich after you already bit into it. And like, could you in theory? Maybe, but it's not really practical. Sometimes quantum immortality goes wrong, and 2 souls join when they weren't supposed to. That could explain a lot of this, I think. And if that is the case, the good news is that it's extremely rare. Doesn't happen often at all. So the odds of it happening again are very, very minuscule. Now time for the joke of the day. I was buying new tires for my car. While I was discussing my options, the person down the counter was flustered at the prices she was being offered. To this, she loudly asked, "I put the same ones on my husband's Jeep last year. What happened? Why are they so expensive?" To which I looked over at her and loudly stated, "Inflation." The guys behind the counter laughed. The rest of the room groaned out a chorus of dad joke music that should have been filmed live in front of a studio audience, but I hope that one day I can muster, these dad jokes, I just read them and learn them and incorporate them, but to be able to, on the spot, on the fly, create your own dad joke, that is pristine quality right there. Perfect. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.